And here we go. My friend, Will Palaszczuk, Willie P. Style on Twitter, the voice of Charlotte FC, also post-game for the Panthers and the Hornets on WFNZ, where you can hear this show for some silly reason at nights. All right, my friend, let's start. Because you're based in Charlotte, I have to know. Have there been loud noises coming out of ACC headquarters, or is it as quiet as I think it is because we haven't heard a peep from Jim Phillips, the commissioner?
I drove past there yesterday on my way home, and I was wondering if I could see, something in the way of like white smoke, like we see from the Sistine Chapel or something like that.
Nice.
But didn't see anything there. But just know that around 12 o'clock Sunday, I'm sure you got the same emails. We started getting all the different emails flowing in, like first the statement from Jim Phillips, and then the statement from Florida State,
Right.
and then the statement from all these other people, and yeah, it's not a good time for them, and I think it just came down simply to, and you and I were talking about it beforehand, the folks at the College Football Playoff, which by the way is a PR committee,
Yep.
decided they'd rather go toe to toe with Florida State in the ACC than the entire American Southeast, and that's their prerogative, as we know.
Yeah, it's interesting because Mike Slive, knowing that Alabama could beat Georgia, they went on a preemptive PR campaign. Nick Saban did it as well. Nick Saban did it last year, lobbying for his two-loss Alabama team. That we're one of the best four teams, and frankly, he was probably right that they were one of the best four teams in the country. But this was the first year that who we think are the best four teams right now, this was the first year it mattered, because there isn't a soul alive that thought Cincinnati was one of the best four teams in college football a few years ago, but they were deserving of their spot because they did something like go undefeated. And boy, if you do that in a major conference, it just seems like you should be allowed to play for a championship, but that's just it. But I think, and I think you share this, the lack of vocal protest, not a written statement, vocal protest from the Atlantic Coast Conference, and any coach. We haven't heard anything from Dabo Swinney. We haven't heard anything from anybody not named Mike Norvell at Florida State. That's appalling to me.
Well, I think the one thing, and you know the way this machination works, is that you go right from the playoff announcement to the bowl announcement. And I think the last thing that Mike Norvell wanted to do was embarrass or I guess throw any kind of rice on the scenario over there with the folks at the Orange Bowl.
Right.
So I think that's the thing that he understandably didn't want to do. But I do find it odd that this was all kind of done by written statement and not necessarily done by anything involving public outcry. And I'm wondering, too, if maybe that's a harbinger of what's to come in terms of schools that wanted to leave the Atlantic Coast Conference might now have some additional ammo that comes to light for them as a result of this decision, because I don't think it was something as simple of something personal to Florida State. I think it maybe feels like a bit of an affront to the entire conference. And look, I sit here as somebody who has no delusions about whether or not these people are quote unquote paid to be fair. I think they're paid to do what, I don't want to say what ESPN tells them to do, but they're paid to provide compelling matchups, and that's part of the reason why they stayed four for so many years. And I think once it goes to 12, maybe we get some fix of this, but I think we're also still going to have, I think the arguments are just going to change, Adam. That's what I sincerely believe.
Yeah, we're just moving the line. We're just, instead of 1st and 10, it's 1st and 15. That's all it is. They're just moving the line to gain. That's what they did when they went from 2 to 4.
Is it bad that I'd want it to be more formulaic like the NFL, or does that sound blasphemous because it takes away the pageantry of college football? Because I've said that for years and people have laughed at me, and maybe they're not laughing now.
Well, we're moving towards something closer, albeit, honestly, I think the system was better with 2. But that's just me. That's just me, because it's pretty simple to come down to 2 teams. Now, this year, 2 teams would have been a little bit difficult, right? because you would have had 3 major conference unbeatens. But if they decided to urinate on Florida State season, then anyway. I want to get to some other things with Will Palaszczuk here. First thing is congratulations to the city of Charlotte. Copa America not only gets – they don't get any group stage. You just get the semifinals and the third place match, which means that we're probably going to see at the very least Brazil or Argentina, maybe both, maybe the United States. I mean, that's going to be awesome.
And don't shortchange Colombia and Uruguay, who've had good stages as well in the qualifying stages as well. But it is something that I try to put this into perspective for folks who might be not familiar with the tournament. This is South America's equivalent of the Euro tournament, and it carries a great deal of importance, probably the most important tournament that's played in the Western Hemisphere outside of the World Cup, and it has a lot of international attention in South America, and the fact that it is basically being co-hosted by the folks at CONCACAF in the United States is something that's very unprecedented. They chose the United States for its exposure, not only from a television standpoint, but also from the level of venues that they can bring to the table and the level of venues that they can fill, with lots of South American heritage obviously being in this country. And we know obviously that Lionel Messi has taken MLS by storm, and that could be something. I think there's a reason why Miami got the final, because there's possibilities that he could end up playing in front of somewhere in the neighborhood of 70,000 in Miami Gardens. But it's a great thing for our city. I'm hoping that we get a good matchup with it, and hoping we get a full building on the 10th of July.
Oh, I don't think there's any question there's going to be a good matchup. I mean, unless absolute madness ensues. And you mentioned Colombia and Uruguay have both had great runs in World Cup qualifying. Luis Diaz is a great story of his own right. He scored almost in every match for Colombia, and Darwin Nunez, another Liverpool forward, has been amazing for Uruguay, and they've got a very, very good squad. So there's a lot of possibilities, and they're all good for Charlotte. By the way, congratulations to Darius Barnes, who was named do I get this right? Executive of the Year in MLS.
MLS Next Pro for
MLS
the
Next
reserves.
Pro. Can we get him hired by the Panthers?
I don't know if he can cross over and do that, but he's somebody who, when he was included with the inaugural management team, I brought a lot of credibility to what Charlotte FC is putting together, and he was initially on kind of the first team management team, and then they folded him into what's going on with Crown Legacy, and that was a squad, Adam, that won the MLS Next Pro Eastern Conference in its first year of existence. They were able to graduate at least 3 players to make some significant contributions, including Andrew Privet, Patrick Adjaman, and Brandon Cambridge. Also, Nimfasha Berkimas, who folks who follow the U.S. Youth National Team, the Under-17 World Cup, he scored 3 goals in 2 games for the United States Youth National Team for a squad that got very, very far in the Under-17 World Cup. So continuing to develop players, and I think he's somebody who has very, very high aspirations of something beyond Crown Legacy, but hopefully we're able to keep him in the player pipeline here for years to come.
And we got to do we need player personnel people. We got coaches to hire as well. Any intel as to is Chris Tabor going to be elevated? I don't think anybody believes that. Any truth to the rumor you think that David Tepper is, in fact, looking at another offensive guy?
I think it definitely is possible. I think the initial thought when they went through this process about 11 months ago is that they wanted to get an innovative offensive mind in here to pair with Bryce Young, and for whatever reason, they decided to go almost in the narrative sense. They liked the narrative with Frank Reich being the first ever quarterback for this organization. They liked having somebody with NFL experience. I think they were kind of, I don't want to say affected by the fact that they hired somebody without NFL coaching experience with Matt Rule. So a lot of times when you hire for one thing, you kind of hire that person's opposite. Well, that obviously didn't work out, as we know. I'm wondering if this means that they go younger and they go with an innovative offensive mind. I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility that they go on the defensive side, but the one thing that we always know, Adam, and this is unfortunately what I thought maybe gave Steve Wilks a bit of a negative sense in terms of getting the job is that when you hire a defensive-minded head coach, that puts all the more pressure on you hiring an offensive coordinator that's almost at that head coach level to try and be a second man in that room to try and handle that side of the football.
Right.
So I'm very curious to see if they go back after Ben Johnson again, if they throw the Brinks truck at him. They can go after the guy in Miami. They can go after Bobby Slowick. I think there's a lot of young names that are out there, and I know that there are people who say that, why is this job so attractive? I think having a young quarterback, having a lot of cap room, and the fact that there's only 32 of them, I think at least gives the Panthers hope that they can feel like they can get this one right, because I feel like it's very critical and imperative to Bryce Young's development that they get somebody who can grow with him as he goes throughout his NFL career.
Yeah, I've heard that before. They said that the last time when they hired Frank Reich, because Thomas Brown is there. I'll be interested to see how what happens to this coaching staff. How does it all scatter? Because I get the sense that it's all leaving. Every single one of them, with the maybe exception being Chris Tabor, who is right now the interim head coach. Will Palaszczuk, Willie P. Style on Twitter, the voice of Charlotte FC on the radio, post for the Panthers and the Hornets. We ran out of time. I kind of like the Hornets roster. I think it'll get better. They just need health. But I don't know that they're playoff level, but I kind of like some of the pieces on the roster. But you didn't need to hear me say that. We'll talk again very soon, my friend.
As always, Adam, it's a pleasure to join you.